Are you looking to buy a property at auction? Then you've come to the right place. In this guide, we're going to go through 5 must-do tips that you need to look at today if you're looking at going to auction.
Tip number 1, always be questioning.
Now, as much as it's easy to believe everything the real estate agent says, and as much as we're told that maybe they're not the most trustworthy of industries, it's really important that when you go to auction that you maintain your own independence and question everything that they tell you, from how many buyers are there, from how much competition there's going to be, to how much it's a great price and the people are desperate to sell. Now, what are some tips you got here, Nathan? Because I know you got some really practical good ones that you can take away right now.
Yeah, super simple tip. Get there 5 minutes before the open home and stay for the full open home. That way you can see how many buyers are interested in the property. You can get a first-hand feel of what the questions are being asked of the real estate agent, and you can get an idea on what your competition is going to be.
Exactly, because at the end of the day, when the property's going to auction, you're going to be bidding against these people. And if you hear them say things like, oh, I've only got a 5% deposit, or if they're looking a bit unsure, then they might not actually be registering for auction, which could leave it you as the sole bidder. Now, another question we always get asked here, Nathan, almost every week, is should I use the building and pest report provided by the real estate agent? What do you think about that?
I think one of two things. Number one, once again, ask the questions. Call the building and pest inspector that's completed the report and ask them questions about what their process is around completing an inspection. Find out if there's any conflicts in interest there. If you're not completely satisfied, then go and do your own. Building and pest is only about $400 to $500. For that peace of mind, for such a big purchase, I think it's worth it.
Yeah. My opinion is, again, you want to maintain your own independence. You want to have your own building and pest inspector go there, because when they go through the properties, and we've both made a mistake and we've spent thousands on it, you can check out some of the other videos we've done. At least when you go through with your own building and pest inspector, they'll take you through and they'll walk you through any issues. If there's leaking pipes, they'll point them out. If there's problems with the ceiling, they'll point them out. And at least you can go in there comfortable on auction day, knowing that when that hammer drops and you own that property unconditionally, that you've got nothing to worry about.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt to get that second opinion. Point number 2, we have a buyer's checklist for buying at auction. It's an 11-step process. We might go through some points and some tips.
So we're not going to bore you and go through all 11, but I think there's some 4 really important ones that we want to point out here. Point number 1 is complete your inspection checklist. Now, Nathan, this is something that you put together yourself. What does an inspection checklist? Because this isn't just specific for auctions. This is for all properties that you go and look at.
So I built this out of my own experience, and when I started looking at properties, especially my first home, I'd walk straight in, walk straight out. I wouldn't know what I've seen. So it's a checklist developed to remind you on things like check that the taps are working, check for this, check for that.
See if there's mold under the sink.
Simple things
stuff,
like that as a first homeowner, I know myself firsthand, I had no clue what I was doing. So it'll just prompt you so that you can get some comparisons against one property to another, and even the auction property, you know what you're getting.
Number 2, and I'm not going to harp on about this, but it's get a building and pest inspection. So again, we've had properties where we've literally could have spent tens of thousands of dollars on issues that you can't see with the naked eye. You can't see damp behind walls, and you can't see concrete cancer. These guys find it for you and check it out and get it sorted. Number 4 on the list is getting your own property valuation. So why is this important, Nathan, getting a property valuation? Like, can you overspend at auction? Is there any risk in getting a bad valuation there? What happens?
I think, generally speaking, you want to know what the property's worth. So you've got RP Data, which is a subscription-based property reporting system that has Australia's largest database of data, which will give you an appraisal online, and you can see what the property's worth based on other comparators in the area. You want to look at what else is selling also comparative to your property, so it gives you an idea of what you potentially can pay for this property. And
again, we've got another video on doing property market research, so we'll put that in the comments. Definitely check that out, because it's going to give you some really good tools that you can use to research the property market. And the last one in that section really is deciding on the highest and final price. Now, we're going to come back to this on our last point in the section in the video, but we just want to make sure that really, a lot of people just go into auction thinking, oh, my price is going to be this, and then you get emotional, you sort of keep moving on the day. Why is that bad?
It is a very emotional time, and if you don't trust yourself, get a friend, your brother, your sister, your uncle, your auntie.
It's nervous. It's nerve-wracking. It's scary.
Absolutely, and you can lose it emotionally. You just get completely unstuck, and you just go for it.
Yeah.
So if you have a final highest bid that you're going to go for, it means that you're going to stay within your limits.
That's awesome. So number 3 is have your finance sorted. So Nathan, talk us through at auctions. You go there. You're on the day. when the hammer drops, the property's yours. There's no
Unconditional, that's
finance
it.
clauses, no building and pest clauses.
Absolutely.
So what can you do to make sure your finance is as watertight as it possibly can be?
So a lot of banks offer a pre-approval. Not all banks are the same here. Some banks offer pre-approvals where there's no validation of information. What that means is you submit your application through, they spit back a pre-approval, but they've not looked at your pay slips, they've not looked at
So it's
your
just a
savings.
credit check, basically.
Exactly right. So you want to make sure that you get a pre-approval with a bank that does a full verification of information. You'll also want to check with the bank or lender that you've decided to go with that the property that you're after is acceptable to them. Because once again, as soon as the hammer drops, that's it. The property's
Game
yours.
over.
You've got to buy it.
And you're legally bound to it. So yeah, just make sure you're really sorting, you're across that. So number 4 is knowing the property's value. So I guess we touched on it before about the research tips though, but in terms of a comparable sale, Nathan, if the banks are looking at this in terms of evaluation, what are some factors they look at? They look at, that they look at other sales that have occurred within the last 3 to 6 months. They look at other sales that have occurred within 2 kilometers. That's the same sort of property type. Anything else that you look for when you're researching properties at this stage?
Those points are probably the major thing. So look at other properties, 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom, 400
Houses
square meter
or units.
houses within that 2 kilometer radius that are selling. Sometimes that can be harder to find, especially within 3 to 6 months. So do as much research as you can, look at what else is on the market, and that will guide you in the right direction as to what you could be spending.
One thing I like doing here, which is a bit lo-fi, but it works, is practicing your morning commute. So one thing that I think people always forget about is that we go and inspect properties either after work or on Saturday mornings when the traffic's pretty low and there's not much happening. And you don't really know if there's going to be school traffic, it's going to get busy, if there's buses, if there's planes going overhead. So one thing I always do is I go there on a Monday morning at 7 a.m. or I go in there Friday afternoon and just practice the commute to see what it's like. Because you never know until you do it, and you can end up finding out that you've got some place that's a rat run, a street that people run through, and they actually end up being really busy and full of traffic. So,
And not to mention when you're there at 7 o'clock in the morning, poke your ear out and hear what's going on. Because if you've got horrible neighbours or neighbours
who
from
tend to
hell,
behave when the real estate agents tell them to.
So exactly right. So that's an actually excellent tip.
Tip number 5 is one that's a bit hard, and like we said, being an emotional time is not easy, but just be prepared to walk away. There's always another property. So Nathan, although it can take you weeks and weeks to prepare for auction, the reality is you might not get it, or the property might go for a higher value than you want. So what are some tips that you can think on this, and how can you sort of work through this? Because you're helping people with pre-approvals every week, and this is actually more than often occurrence.
So we mentioned it before, if you've got friends or family that can help with the bidding process, go for it. Another solid tip is if you know a buyer's agent, they will charge a small fee for you to go there on the day, but they're professionals. They know how to, complete the tactics around the auction. So use a professional like a buyer's agent to help you get in the market and win the auction. And they'll use strategies that are proven, especially if they go to auctions week in, week out. They'll help you guide in the right direction.
No, it's great. So that's it from us, guys. Which was your favorite tip? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. And if you've got any questions, hit us up in a DM or send us a message at huntergalloway.com.au. Until next time.
Thanks,
see ya.
guys.